Good evening. I'm Barbara Tinnerman Cecil, and on behalf of Susie Spittler and Tom Beck, I want to welcome you to tonight's oral history taping. It is Tuesday, May the 24th, 2022, and tonight we will hear about the Young Spirits. Our first speaker is David Wyan. David.
Well, thanks for having us. Thanks for putting this together for us. Young Spirits has been a part of the community of West Milton since 1971, and it's, for me personally, just a major part of my younger years, 7th through 12th grade. I actually joined in the I wasn't in the first performance for the Palm Sunday performance, but I played piano, and I joined during the summer when the accompanist, Donna McCowan, was unable to play a couple of the gigs, and I filled in for her. And from then on, I was hooked and a part of Young Spirits from that time on. I became the director of Young Spirits in 1987, I believe it was. And served as the director until our final year, and that would have been pre-COVID, and 19, I believe, was our last performance. Young Spirits is open, or was open, to any 7th through 12th grader that attended Milton Union schools, attended a church within the Milton Union Council of Churches, or later on in years, we opened it up to anybody in Miami County that wanted to be a part of Young Spirits that was in the 7th to 12th grade. I think the first beginning years, an average number was somewhere between 30 to 40 kids. And at our heyday, maybe in the early 90s, we had about 160 kids on stage. Matter of fact, one year when we had so many kids, we actually had to buy a new stage or more staging, additional staging and lights just to accommodate the size of the group. And from there, it has gone up and down. But unfortunately for us, the COVID being off 2 years didn't help us any. And kids are just really, really busy nowadays. And show choir is kind of the event, the thing that kids are in. And, of course, they're going on Saturday for competition. So, but we had a great run, almost a 50-year run. And I think one of the things that I think is very unique about Young Spirits is really over the 50 years, we didn't really change the format that much. The very first year, we practiced on Saturdays, and it was at the Brethren Church to begin with. And we have Phyllis Bradley here with us, and her mom was actually the first director. So I'm excited to see what she has to share with us. But we practiced on Saturdays from, I think, 1 to 4 originally, and we continued that right until the end. We practiced every Saturday 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. We always did choreography. We always had instrumentalists. We had the kids involved in all of those areas from the beginning, clear through 2019. And one of the highlights of the year for the kids is the retreat. And I remember that first retreat that I attended very well. And we continued those kind of traditions of talking about the musical, and a candlelight service was always a very special time at the retreat. Those are the comments that I wanted to share, and I think I'll turn it over to Becky Huffaker Ward, who I think was probably in the very first one.
Yes. Thank you. I just wanted to share a little bit of what the Young Spirits personally for me. I was in the first 6 performances, and it, like David said, time, when you're a teenager, I just feel like you need something like that, and to get a bond with the same kids from different churches. And I just feel like it really meant a lot to me, and learned to get really close to a lot of people. And I always look forward to the retreats. The retreats were always moving. We'd have different things that we would do. Of course, it was a lot of work because we'd be working on the musical, but I think it kept me out of trouble in my high school years. Just have something to feel important and like you're working for God and getting the word out to. At first, I kind of thought, at that age, especially when we had to perform in front of the high school, you kind of feel, but I don't know, I kind of felt like apprehensive about doing it. But it just meant a lot to me, and I think it made the person that I am today. And I guess I don't have too much more to say than that. And so next is Phyllis Bradley Dodd.
Hello, and I am also very honored to be here today. I just happened to move back into the area after 50 years, so I'm here at the right time, I guess, as everything finishes up. But I just wanted to share with you some of the first beginnings of the Young Spirits, because I was with my family in Kansas. I think we were in Wichita, Kansas, at a musical. And I remember my mother saying, my mother was the director, I remember her saying, oh, wouldn't that be great to take back to our town and provide it as a community effort. And so she and my father, Phil Bradley, and Earlene Bradley is my mother, brought the idea back to West Milton and presented it to the Ministerial Association. And right away, they said right away, everybody got excited about the idea. And so they formed a group of 11 churches to work on the project. And the pastor of the Methodist Church, Buster Hammond, was included. They started planning how do we get all these youth together. But after a while, they thought, well, we don't have a director who's going to. They found people to do sound and all kinds of parts of this project, but they didn't find the director. So that's when they asked my mother, and she had been. The reason she was at this musical was because she was taking a course with the Choristers Guild, seminar with Choristers Guild, so that she could learn how to direct music to children. And she said, well, I really don't know how to direct, but I'll try it. So she did that, and that's how she got involved and started with it. But all the different churches provided guitar players and musicians, and they sent, I guess, their youth to the first recruitment of kids. And she said there was about 53 kids at that first meeting that showed up. And as time went on, apparently a lot of kids from other towns wanted to come. And they would not allow that. They said only from West Milton could these youth come because it grew really fast. I think the first performance was about 50 or 60 kids, and then the second Palm Sunday performance, which was Natural High, I think there was 106 kids on the stage. And so since it was growing so fast, they had some staging, but they didn't have what they needed. And I guess they went to an auction and they found a lot of things that they needed and sound equipment and everything, but they didn't have any money. So she mentioned somebody's name. Let me see, who was the encourager? I think Bill Perch was the encourager. And he said, don't worry, it will come. If we get the equipment, we will get the funds. And so that first performance, this is at Tell It Like It Is, there was 1,600 people that showed up that night, the first night, standing ovation, and of course they found the funds to buy more staging, which is what they needed, to keep this thing, to keep all those kids up on the stage. And but there were so many hands in this whole project, and so much enthusiasm and so much spirit. And I don't know where they got the name Young Spirits. Maybe somebody else knows that. But there was a lot of spirit. And the first of course, Pass It On is very influential, this song that has been sung over the years, and it's just a kind of an example of how we continue to pass this on. But I'm going to let someone else speak. And
Craig Foreman.
Craig Foreman is next. Pass it on.
That's right.
Pass it on to Craig Foreman.
That's all right. Thank you for inviting me here tonight to share some memories. I was running some lyrics through my head, not Young Spirits lyrics, but lyrics from an old Simon and Garfunkel song. Time it was, and what a time it was. It was a time of innocence, a time of consequences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left to you. This is a weekend when I celebrated my 50th anniversary of graduation. Saw some of these good people here. Earlier in this year, we finally got around to celebrating the 50th anniversary of Young Spirits, and I got a chance to come to that as well. My mother came with me because this has been an important part of our growing up. I was part of that first group. I was in the first three, and I actually helped to direct one in '78. I did the musical arrangements for Naphtali with Mike Wirt, and it was a time when young people were searching. It was late Vietnam era. We were all heading off into college and into the world, and we didn't really know what kind of a world we were heading off into. And it was kind of scary at that time. Didn't get a whole lot better, but there was a threat of nuclear war, and the Soviet Union and America were at odds with each other, and the Democrats and Republicans wouldn't talk to each other and get things done. And we had a president who was terrible and got thrown out of office, and then we had one that followed him that was ineffective. And I mean, it was just not a very fun time to be a young person. The stuff that you remember, I think, came from Sing Out Troy. That was a group in Troy, Ohio, that preceded Young Spirits. And the Young Spirits kind of modeled themselves after that, Sing Out Troy. And that was just a group of let's all get together, gee whiz bang, and sing patriotic and spiritual music. And it lasted a few years, and they went out of business quicker than we did, and had all this equipment lying around just at the time when we needed it. And Bill Pierce, by the way, was our pastor. At a Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. And nobody knows the impact that Bill had on this community and on this thing, except the handful who were involved in Young Spirits. I don't think our church ever appreciated Bill Pierce the way he should have been appreciated. I'm glad to hear his name mentioned here. Thank you for doing that. All I can say about Young Spirits is that I was grateful to be a part of it. My family and I were deeply involved. My brother and sister, up through the time of Naphtali, were involved in Young Spirits. We still have jokes inside the family about doing choreography that we call Young Spirits choreography, and we'll all break into this, and we'll do the box steps, and it's a fond way of recollecting what this community did for a whole generation of young people, and continue to do for 50 years. Wow, makes me proud to be from West Milton, and. Talking here just a little while, saying, I haven't seen you for 10 years or 30, and I've seen you 6 times in the last 3 months. Well, I'm retiring in 5 weeks, you see, and so I'm trying to figure out what to do with my time. I wish Young Spirits were still going. That'd be one of the things I'd do with my time. But something else will come in its place, and I want to say that if it does, I hope the community will embrace it, because the times are still uncertain. The times are still times of innocence and times of consequences. Our memories are more than just what needs to be preserved, but they need to shape and direct us into the future. And I'm really grateful to have Young Spirits as part of my shaping. And I can't tell you enough how important that was, because I'm sitting here dressed like a pastor. I'm not going to a Halloween party. And if you knew me personally, and many of you do, you'd know that it's the last thing you would have expected me to be. And yet I've been one now for nearly 40 years, and I think that I've done a faithful job, if not an adequate job. And it was people like Bill Pierce, Buster Hammonds, and the groups that were involved, your mother in particular, and your father, Phil, that impacted me, and that stayed with me for many, many years beyond the actual singing and the joy that we brought to the community in the moment. That joy spread out and fulfilled a lot of lives, and has now been shared in other communities by Young Spirits alumni all over the place. So well done, good and faithful servants. I'm proud to be a part of this. And this is Jerry Picken, who was also there close to the very beginning, and one of the people that was one of my mentors, I think, not only in Young Spirits, but in Boy Scouts. So glad to see him here. Jerry?
Thank you. Well, the first year when it was started. Buster handed to me and my wife, because we were starting to work with the youth group in Ed Hoffman. And next thing I knew, we were at the retreats, and involved from there on. They got a bus from the Little Majors. They had two of them, actually. There were about 32 passenger buses that the American Legion was sponsored then, and we were able to use the buses, and we went about any place that we could get the kids to go. And at the time, when the time to come to put the performance on, they needed someone to start working with the lights and that, so unfortunately I got picked on that too. So we worked different types of lights. Like they said, we had no money. We worked up a lot of different things to try to make the lights come out. They rented a lot. I remember the first dimmers that we had were levers on a big table sitting underneath the back behind the curtain.
They blew
there
off
was
smoke
three of
and
us pulling
sparks.
the lights up and down. That's right. Just to try to get the lights work to the right places. So, yeah, we came a long ways in a short time. And then every time we would get the money up, we could buy a little bit more. And each year we could pick, like I say, the risers, the lights, some speaking, a lot more things that were needed. And like Darren said, one year we had 160 kids in it. And the thing that most important thing I thought on that was when we had practice at the Brethren Church, no, that was at the UC Church, they always stop and have a minister stop in the middle of it and give us a little bit of what's going on. And I always stood in the back, and there's two kids in the 7th graders, they're standing there, and the one looks over at the other and says, "What's he talking about?" And the other guy said, "Well, he's got old man's going to stand up here and he's talking about something." And he says, "It's really kind of interesting what he's going to tell us about." He said, "Well, let's listen to it." And that was one of the biggest things that I remembered with the young kids coming in. That particular year, when I was chairman of it, I had the programs where we could put down what churches they were involved in, and we had 63 kids that put down their names that were never affiliated with any churches. So that was a big thing for us, I think. Other than that, I'll turn it over to Darren.
Well, I'm honored to be up here with all you people and share a little bit about Young Spirits. Really, my history with Young Spirits goes all the way back to when David was in, because I can remember going to the high school and watching you guys perform, and then it's kind of ironic when I was in 7th grade, I almost didn't join. I wasn't even thinking about it. And Andy Helmick came up to me the week of the first practice and said, "Hey, do you want to go to Young Spirits this weekend?" And I'd remembered Young Spirits from when David was in. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And I went, and now here I am, how many years later, and I'm still a part of it. So so glad that I took that plunge and became a member. So I started in 1979 in the group. That was the year of Naphtali, when Mike Wirtz was the director. Then during my college years, I took a little bit of time off, obviously, when I was at college. And really when I got back from college, I got back on the steering committee and was handled the publicity for a while. And then I believe in 97 or 98, I can't remember which, I took over as chairman from Jerry, and have been chairman of the steering committee ever since then. So it's been a great run, and I've had a good time, and we've had so many good kids and so many blessings. You can't even name them all. So it's been a good time. Some of my favorite memories, and Jerry will love this, retreat at Kirkmont was my absolute favorite. The guys stayed out in the cabin, the girls stayed in the main lodge. And as I remember, there was a bell tower.
Yep.
That was by the main lodge, and during the night, I think that rang about every hour on the hour. I do believe, and I don't think any of us slept at all that night. So, and me being a 7th grader, I was just in awe. It's like, wow, this is so cool. So, but anyway, I really wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about some of the great adults that we've had over the years that have served on the steering committee. Really, without the steering committee, this group would not be where it is today. And some of the people that I really want to recognize, and I don't know if we can maybe name all the directors that were in. I don't have that list in front of me, but I think we should probably recognize the directors. Do you know who that is, David, by chance? I believe so. Earlene Bradley was the first director, and Phyllis is her daughter. Then it was Kay Elam. She was the pastor's wife from Lahr United Church of Christ. Then I'm thinking Mike Wirtz. Mike Wirtz was the next director. Then Karen Thaxton, and then I took over from Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Carol Palmer was in there as assistant.
Yeah, we've had several assistants. I'm going to say Sue Tomlinson for a while, Carol Palmer later on.
Who was in there with it naftally? Who helped?
Me. That was me.
You were the
Correct.
assistant? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And also through that time, we had the chairman that served on the steering committee, Buster Hammonds, Don Flory, Don Brode, Dale Truscott, Joe Hinton, Jerry, and myself. So really can't say enough about the dedication of those people that put in the time. And also really just every position on the steering committee, just so thankful for the people that have helped. Those people really put in countless hours of just fellowshipping with the kids, baking cookies. I can't tell you how many cookies the steering committee has baked over the years. Staying up all night with the kids at retreat. That's always an event for sure. Building backdrops and staging. I don't know how much blood I've lost from carrying risers around. And I know that back when you guys first started, I think the risers were probably wood.
Yes. They collapsed.
Then they purchased the steel risers, which those were extremely heavy and dangerous. And now we have aluminum risers, which are a little bit lighter, but still heavy. But we've come a long way as far as that goes. But driving buses, filling in for missing choreography partners when somebody needed help at practice or retreat. And really just being good role models for the kids. And I just really appreciate the time that everybody has put in. You really can't, in my mind, you can't even think about Young Spirits, or at least I can't, without thinking of Dick Abbott. Dick Abbott, back in the 90s, was really such an evangelist for this group. He was a teacher at Milton, and he talked to the kids and encouraged them to come. And I can't tell you how many kids have told me over the years that the reason they came to Young Spirits was because Dick Abbott invited them to come. And so I just really want to make sure that we mention his name here tonight and for all that he did. And lastly, just a couple of maybe, I don't say forgotten, but people you don't think about, the staging and lighting crews that have put in all the time, all the kids. We've had some crazy times. And also all the people that have played in the bands. When I look back at the videos from the 70s, those were some major bands. I mean, you guys had guitars and bass and keyboard, and it was a true band, and really awesome. And had woodwinds and flutes, and we had some of that I think later on, but then we kind of got away from that maybe in later years. But really talented musicians that have come forward and played piano and played instruments and helped with drama. So that's really it. I'm just so glad to be a part of this group and glad that I was here tonight. Now we'll turn it over to Steve Schhuman.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. And I'm not quite the public speaker that other people are, but I have some really good memories of Young Spirits, and it was a huge influence while growing up. The good memories include being and working with people, and especially being under the influence of the leaders that we had. Some of those leaders that particularly stand out in my memory from 1971 and a couple years after are Earlene Bradley, Kay and Dean Elam, Jerry Pinkerton, and Sue Tomlinson. They were all workers, active contributors, and examples to follow. And and I played bass guitar most of the time. Even after I graduated from high school, if they couldn't find a bass guitarist, I came back and played again. So I played, I don't know how many times, but a little beyond the age range. One memory I have that's not necessarily exactly about young spirits is that my brother and I, he was 4 years younger than I, so he's in 7th grade and I'm a senior, and we stayed with Jerry and others working on lighting and staging, and I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I think that's the most trouble I've ever gotten in with my parents when I stayed out too late at a church activity. So otherwise I was pretty well behaved, but don't ask around too much. But what impressed me about Young Spirits is just about, well, you mentioned a lot of the attendees at times were not associated with the church, but most were. And we had sat through lots of sermons, lots of Sunday school classes, learning how to be Christians. But Young Spirits gave us all the opportunity to learn by example from our leaders and learn by doing. And so as we were learning our relationships with others and our relationship with God, it was a spiritual development time. And I do imagine that has multiplied 1 million times throughout the world from the thousands that have been involved in Young Spirits. So I'm very thankful to have been involved, and it's too bad that it's ending, but maybe one of those seeds out there someplace or more is similar things are starting up elsewhere. So yes, learning by example to be Christians is the biggest thing for me. And we were talking earlier about, Jerry was talking about the lighting and sound. I can remember walking over to the corner of the stage one time, and Jerry's there working with the front off the electrical panel, and just a maze of wires coming out of there, going to various places, and I didn't get anywhere close to that. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you to all the leaders of the past and the participants who made this possible. And next is Lista Paulus Oaks.
So I was in Young Spirits from 1984 to, well, actually 84 to 89. It's funny how many times you think about this over and over in your head, and then all of a sudden you forget what years they were. But very much probably some of the best years of my life. It's really weird because in today's age, all the kids, you're either a part of this group or you're an athlete, or everybody is separated. They all have their own things, and in this group, we all came together. Didn't matter what we did, church, non-church, athletes, band kids, music kids. I mean, it was just everybody together. Didn't have to be a singer. You could be a musician. Didn't have to even be a musician or a singer. You could help with the staging, the lighting. You could be in the band. It was an all-inclusive group that just included everybody. So it was really nice. Didn't have any idea what I was getting into. I had older cousins that had came before me, and probably in 7th grade, it was, well, you ought to do this. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I had been to performances and that kind of thing. Wasn't really sure what it was as far as all the work in the back, but I'm really glad I did. Since then, I've had 4 kids. They've all been in it. And we've talked a lot about how the kids are so busy now, and they are. But sometimes I think as a parent, we have to kind of push our kids to the stuff that's important. So we've been to softball games in Waynesville where we've had to drive all the way back real quick to get to the Tuesday and Thursday practices at night. Every year we had to leave retreat early on a Saturday morning. It was every year opening day for softball. Every year. It just fell that way. We had to leave, go to the softball game, come back. So I just kind of feel like as a parent, it was my job. Just, we did the athletic things, but this was as important, if not more important. So, but it was a very, like I said, inclusive group. And I'm thankful for the people that came before me. I don't know if they remember, so I'm not like aging anybody, but I think at one point you were one of my steering committee members.
Yeah.
I know Jerry was. So just, we have a lot of people to thank for all the things that happened back then. So I am going to introduce Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky Circle Garrett, and I was a 2005 Milton Union graduate. So my memories of Young Spirits started when I went to church as a little kid at Hoffman, and I would watch these girls walk in and sing to us before Palm Sunday. They would come in and they would sing a couple songs and talk about Young Spirits. And I always thought to myself, I'm going to be like one of them. I want to be in this group. I think it's awesome. They get to sing about God. And so I ended up, when I was in 7th grade, WWJD was our first performance that we did. And I was in it until a senior, and then I went away to college and came back in 2009 and started being on the steering committee. And I've been on the steering committee ever since. I'm the Facebook girl, so in case you are on our Facebook page. One of my favorite parts as a steering committee is just working with each of the groups of kids that come through the program. So we had amazing kids who we got to know really, really well. As a steering committee person, I had a grade that I shared with another adult, and we just got to know the kids and really enjoyed our time with them. And I think that's one of the most, the biggest parts that I'll miss from being part of the steering committee. But as a high schooler and a middle schooler, my favorite part of Young Spirits was retreat weekend. For a long time, I think it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, I hung out with a group of kids who didn't want to sleep at all throughout the whole time. And so we would run across the floor. It was tile, and so we would, with our socks on, we would run across the floor and slide into the stage, and then we would just do it all night and just keep going. And we ate lots of Oreos. That's like all, and drank a lot of pop. I don't know. We were just crazy, but we had an amazing time. We really enjoyed ourselves. We had a talent show. That was always really cool at retreat. We had candlelight. And as a steering committee person, I actually enjoyed candlelight more because I got to know more about the seniors and what their plans were for after. We cried a lot at candlelight. Every year I think I cried. So it was just, Young Spirits has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. And when I was in middle school, I always just remember, I still remember some of the kids who were the role models. Their names are popping up in my mind right now, but they just were always just so cool. And in high school, I would look at them and I'd be like, they're so neat. They're in Young Spirits and they go to JTI and they do all these things, and I want to be just like them. And I kind of ended up being a lot like some of them. So we didn't have show choir back when I was in school, like a big show choir. So this was a good outlet for those of us who like to sing and dance and like to sing about God, because that didn't happen a lot. And one thing that I was thinking about through my college years, I would come back and bring people from college to watch Young Spirits because I just thought it was such an awesome program. And none of my friends had ever heard of something like this in their cities or cities around them. And so it was always just kind of cool to be able to share with them that this is what I did. And even now people will be like, what do you do on Saturdays? And I'm like, well, January through April, I'm always at Young Spirits. And so it's going to be kind of weird not to have that anymore. But I picked a couple songs that I wanted to share that I really just loved throughout Young Spirits. The first one is Go Light Your World by Chris Rice. And it talks about taking your candle, running into the darkness, finding the people who are lost and lonely, and showing them the light that you can find in Christ. And about how that light will brighten their darkness and take it away from them. And there's a part in it that says, we are a family whose hearts are blazing, so let's raise our candles and light up the sky. And I always thought to myself, that's exactly what Young Spirits is. We're teaching all of these kids that they have this light inside of them because they believe in Jesus. And they're going out into the world as seniors, going into their college years, and they're lighting little sparks everywhere that they go. So that was one of the songs that I really liked. Another one is one that we recently did called Are We There Yet? And I think every single time that the kids sang this song, I cried because it says, to the ends of the earth, this good news must go till everyone knows. Are we there yet? Have we walked every road, climbed every hill, told every soul? Are we there yet? Do the lost know their name? Has the world been set free from all the darkness and pain? Are we there yet? So, Young Spirits, and we talked about the seed that was planted in all of these people that were in Young Spirits. And I feel like not everybody can be missionaries that go out into the world, but those of us who were in Young Spirits, we are missionaries in wherever we are in our lives. If we're still here in Milton, we are missionaries to other people because of what we went through with Young Spirits, and we can share that word to everyone. The next one, of course, is Friends. We sang this one. It was like an attachment to I think it was the WWJD, possibly, or Friends Forever. I forget which one, but it was like a attachment to our musical that we did. And I think that a lot of us made lifelong friends in Young Spirits. And even though a lot of us went our separate ways, when we come back together, we can still talk and think about our memories that we made. And a part of it says, friends are friends forever if the Lord is Lord of them. And a friend will not say never, because the welcome will not end. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to live as friends. So when we had our 50th, I thought, wow, all these people from all walks of life are coming together, and we have something in common, which is Young Spirits, and just how amazing it was, and how it touched each of us and touched lives of our family who came to watch us, and our friends who came to watch us. And then the last song that I thought of was Pass It On. and we've talked about it in this before, but one of my maybe saddest memories was when we sang this with the kids right before we closed down, before the pandemic, when the pandemic hit in 2020, and we sang it together, and it was just really sad because those kids weren't going to be able to have that senior moment, and we just didn't know what was going to happen. You sang that song, and we all left, and we weren't sure if we were going to see each other or what was going to happen. But thankfully we were able to sing it at our 50th party, and it was a really cool moment. I think one of my favorite parts as a steering committee member, watching the seniors sing this song, they all got in a circle and they sang it together, and my favorite part is, I wish for you, my friend, this happiness that I found. You can depend on him. It matters not where you're bound. I'll shout it from the mountaintop. Praise God. I want my world to know. The Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. And so having those seniors together, telling them that no matter where they're going in life, they are going to take God with them, is very powerful. And I just know that for me, Young Spirits, not only as a high schooler, was an amazing experience, but as a steering committee member, it also changed my life, dealing with the kids, and just being a part of their life was really special to me myself. So I'll be quiet. I'm done.
Thank you all very, very much. This has been so interesting and so inspirational, and we really appreciate you all taking the time to come and tell us about the Young Spirits, because it is and was a wonderful group that did so much for our town. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.